efforts of this great master Nāgārjuna.
Then Gumbalative song tela Tavi Chadon, Jovi Chase, Miss Chivi Nani, Tavi Cha, so don't be younger, non Lola, Rixo, say this younger, T Nani, Zawa Rawati, Omatava Hero. Gumbalative song tela. Tavi Chadon, Jovi Chani, Nani, Tavi Chatur Tombati, Rixo, T Nani.
We can divide the works of Nāgārjuna into two main categories. One is the category concerning the view and the aspect of the view, and the other is the aspect of conduct. And when we're talking about Nāgārjuna's middle way and the current text, the root verses of the middle way, then this is a text that pertains to the first aspect, the aspect of the view, which is contained in a so-called collection of works by Nāgārjuna that is called the collection of reasoning.
Hirab Shishawa song, Sangomati Hirab, Hirab Joshi Chani, Joshi La, Sertani, Hirab song.
The Tenjuki mean so in church, Tenjuki mean.
Nothing to me, de.
Yeah. Shut So the actual original name of the text was just wisdom.
Then Omi Zawa Siglewa Shiva, Songoyore. Consentinde Oma Zawa Hin Song. The Omi Tenchu Tamche Gishins Saga Zaware Songere. De Chachuri.
The Tsengi Kachana will share up Tang Sawan Tanimbesh.
Amo Sidi Bangan Nama, Hirab Shisha was Sandy. Mina Teres. Then he considered Omi Zawa Siglewa Shiva, City or Mūlamadhyamakakārikā.
And then there's the aspect that describes this text further, which is the full title, The Root Verses of the Middle Way. So describing what is the quality that is being explained in this text on wisdom. And that is the root verses, the fundamental verses concerning the doctrine of the middle way.
Oh, that Tetavi Tenchu Chaperchanjig Jamakarma God Nani Tangasu Chanyan Chichian dear Nasu Tamsiga Semgela Panka Yojire, Sambachi Kung Dichet Sona Ingere, Sambachi Naranga Semjainari, Kinamba Yenari, Tene Ichicheyo.
So this is this extraordinary text that commentary from the commentarial tradition that His Holiness told Khenpo to teach at this time around. And when Khenpo says, when I think about why did he say so, then probably because there is a great benefit for all of us in hearing and learning about this text. This is what I think and my idea about why he chose this text, and I think we can all trust that.
Oh, Tenino, Tanasu, Tetavi, Tenshu de, Dero Kadichila Chomare, Theatre.
So when did this work come into being? In which century, what era are we talking about?
That day, Kantor City and Gumbo the Trip, Terabde, Kahimbate, Hakona, Tighaku Takuyor.
So for that, of course, we need to look back at when Nāgārjuna lived.
The Gumbo the Congo number Tarwa, Namtar, Mama, Korang, Loma, Yanlop, Yana, Lord Jautra, Chick, Jautra, Ni, Tendri, 鬧了这么些吧，地要么。 Gumbal the rank number Tarva, Konanga Homa inare, Homi Homa inare, Gumbal the Gini Lo Ja, Nija, Tendi Kaula Samjapi, Namtati Rakiomar. Namter, Pesati Yom, Chilla Rakiomar. Taji, this would Rakiomar is tongue with the
Namtaram Kaduna.
number Tarva, Lord G, de Rayati Gini, Ginita, Jonathan at the Muchik.
So the first accounts of Nāgārjuna's life, his biography, are not very recent after passing, not 100 or 200 years after his life. We did not have any accounts that early.
Chida huma jagar kanalo tela namthar tan lorgi te chik khasar wadawati medava chik jarwo yenare lama yenare te tese lorgi korla jagar te tos shira sarware madu lorgi te shira kan ina shira sarkamadu
Jidangi gyarbu
Jana Rawata, Jana Jagari Rawayana, Jarbotis Logi Yenare, Lamatis Logi Yenare, Jana Kasaido, Sarvati, Jagarti, Logi, Tendre, Kasawaran, and Yakmadwa.
And it seems like in India, it was not really the tradition that one would have very accurate accounts of the lives, whether they were masters or whether they were kings, like we would have in other countries.
The Logi Sada Dawachigla Kanyakor Sediga Jarbotis Logi Shava Kala Jagarla Jarab in Kushanas Jarab Chigore. Tin no la Jaru Kanichigasi Chigore, Tin Gumbal the Duk Son la Tine Tikpachimbola Karsegorochi. Tamba Periala, Ropasho, Chiviti, Lorgiti, Yonda Retius.
What we know is that Nāgārjuna has likely lived during an empire of the so-called Kushana Empire in India, and during that time there was a king that was called Kanishka, and what we know is that this king Kanishka converted to the Mahayana with arduous faith, thanks to the teachings of Nāgārjuna.
Chitani Kanishika Lorgila Yang, Chishatan Ramada Kashi Yonko Yorda Yena Yang, the Dansan Rawayana, Jagar Kiba Ma Chivi, Chiktambi Rawasinare, Tanker Rawachik, they can't check what city. Maharaja Kanishika City. Tirab Town Kaka, Jarway Embate, the Yonda Chata.
Although there are various accounts of the life of Kanishka that might divert a little bit from each other, generally these days Indian scholars are pretty unanimous about this king Kanishka having lived in the 1st century of the Common Era.
Tende on the Ngumbadu de the Tirab Town Kavla, Shugova, the Tirab Town Kavka, Sanjigitamba, Penkansi, and Bate Yacha Tacha Tavada, which Chashadu.
So we can pretty much ascertain that Nāgārjuna lived and spread the Dharma during the 1st century.
Then Jene Perna Chona Tara Natada, Konambi, Ngumaduk Namter, Sonko Yore, Chona Tara Nadisona Yore. Yenayon, they saw Panta that is Sharni, Chikilama, Juni, Levion, Sharni, Juni Leon, Chik.
And then later on, we find an account on the life of Nāgārjuna by the scholar Jonang Taranata. And it seems that this account on the life story of Nāgārjuna were all accounts that were transmitted verbally.
Tangasu Tende Chisor Dom Jawandi, Pangan Papa, the Tirab Tang Kavla, 페바치 데네 단다 즉 빵따 요바 세나레 콘 잠보 요바 덴리기 땅에 쇼트비아데 데르 땅 까블라 페바치 당 나렌 달라 페네 로존 나와 따데 탁자 톡기도
Alle den Kampola Pevio,
데 탁자도 너무 데라
Yeah. So what we can know pretty accurately is that in the first century, Nāgārjuna was alive and active, and that he went to Nalanda.
디가 나렌다데 대시 나장가베 샤다 쳔보 근데 야콥 마원네 로장 생각 마원 랩데 요사 덴디 시르그 테니 직 같이 디가라 차가 사마레
Though it seems that Nalanda was at that early time not yet a big university for Buddhist studies as we then later hear from Nalanda, but it was rather a smaller place that did perhaps not have many students yet.
고물르도 남터 카히 나로라 나렌 달라 겐던바 나자 야마치라 직 냥코르 피야 생격지 드네 세트소소네 무기 갑치라 젤락 피야다 덴디 로지 요레 덴디 제원데 다 마뇨 나자 야마도 지슈네 로존 안사 냠렌 안사 같이 디컬 나렌 다 덴디 도시 비소다치도
It seems that during that time, Nalanda had about 500 monks, 500 Sangha members. And Nāgārjuna, there's a story that during a famine, he was taking care of exactly these 500 Sangha members by transforming iron into gold. And that's how he could sustain the Sangha members during a famine. So they talk about 500, around 500 members.
드네 단 통사디 로쇼 체 단다 베다와 세데 다 고그네리 요사 사자 파제 파 로쇼나 고그데리 마오요레 데야메 예사레 세텐디 랍기도
What does that mean?
단다 고그네리 세지와 저다 디 처징도와요 이 고그네리 세 셔 저다 디밍레 세지용도 베다 세티 로쇼 베디 요든 세나 로기나요 따데 로쇼란 통화치로
아니 사적인 베다.
통야데 베디 요세
Bedeyul. Beda di coconut.
네
And where was he born? Nāgārjuna is said to come from South India, from a place called Beda, and Beda apparently means coconut.
드네 끝이 매라요 로쇼 라파 페네 로쇼 빠기라라 냠레 나니 다 연랑오 때라슈 땡추데서 자점나 드네
Voilà.
로쇼 빠기르 세요
Min karsa pelki.
빠기르 세 빠기르 세데 hirgri 세로
Palgie. Tam tutse bitse melas.
텔라 조 냠레 나니요 데요 텔라 냠레 나니 슈도 드바 냠레 조 나니 데 슈스레
And it said that when he was young, he spent his time mainly in a place called Palgie, if I heard correctly. And he used to dedicate himself mainly towards practicing.
따데네 제다 남털 망고 요레 예나요 땅아수 단다 총여르데 로쇼치 총위 디서데 데네 세나레 따티르 당우 깔라 주기요가 되치 데네 추쇼게 자바데 데네 오존 나사데 나렌다시 냠렌 나사데 파르키레치 따티 돔라워치 디셰그나라 니코 텐데 신난득사레타스
From the many accounts on Nāgārjuna's life, we can therefore summarize these four essential points that have just been mentioned: that he was alive in the first century of the Common Era, that he was born in a place called Beda, and that concerning his Dharma path, he studied in Nalanda, and in this place called Palkye, he dedicated himself to practice.
다 드네 콩고 로미 조 너빠 아이한테 와래.
His main disciple was Aryadeva.
드네 잠바 지 반차다 저도 근데 제단에 망고였어요.
And of course, he for sure had many other disciples. Among many were scholars and siddhas.
드네 땅가서 소판 깨져 침보 근데 용kan 카히양 공부들 공부를 레소야 마레소야 다 대소 대시아츠다마다 망고였어요.
And then there are various accounts on who exactly was a direct disciple of Nāgārjuna, among which we hear the names of many famous masters who have, from some said to be disciples of Nāgārjuna, and then others deny that. So there are various accounts on that topic.
So
this is a short introduction about the author of the text. Our topic for this course is the root verses on the middle way. So what is being explained here is the middle way.
상지 좀든지 거랑라 셰싱은도 당든지 송은데 자시상적 셈바 오미타와 냠레 난칸 총요바디 다무물고 와도시레
Tadi tenerespa. Di kapta jangju sema zo umetawa kare
장주 셈바 근데 오미타와 냠레 난칸
re tanda sangi chomne
거랑라 셰싱은도 송로 다 셰싱은도디 오미타와랑 송로
So this text explains the view of the middle way, and for sure, since we know that the Buddha taught the Prajnaparamita Sutras in India, that also entails that there were many bodhisattvas who practiced the view of the middle way.
Tati kapre ti chong jiri te sola naso jagar baranga gendong deg nalo te sola chi heseng chanyen se da tende do tomo de tende sarwara yo samare.
So that was related to a certain circle of practitioners who had been present with the Buddha when he taught the Prajnaparamita Sutras. But in general, the Prajnaparamita doctrine was not, after the Buddha proclaimed it, in that way present and explained and practiced by the common people, or in general. It was not accessible in that way.
Dene da besi tang kap dang dirub tang kap desola jitsan jambi yang dang dene papa jane jitsan chambang gombo dendege jis zonwi kansa kyabar chan kahi dene tukpa chenbu sonrab deso peryaga go tsugni dende dawa chik thumang ko mi nalo la tamchegen thongsa la lewate dende dawa chik redo bisi tangwani ngotsu tani dirub tangwa nala ta desi hyukchenbo
Ale tyra tang punang la ani kare jambe yang tang konso namba sum.
jitsen jambe yang sharjare seya tang tani chani chik desu ngos jisa zong song tani kansa kyabar chan yena yang yongchak la yang shira kata chenbo mewa chik
Re ani di kadu chungre tyra tang bu kabla.
bisi tangwa kab tang
Ani
dirub tangwa kab.
And then it is said that around the 1st century before the Common Era, that at that time it started to spread a little wider, although until the 1st century of the Common Era, it was mainly transmitted, these teachings, the view of the middle way, through visions of the Bodhisattvas, Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, and Maitreya, who would appear to particular individuals and transmit them these teachings. And then in the 1st century, it is said that these teachings slowly start to spread to a larger audience.
Then gumbo little tene repan number tapala tene chigma tanla pap tene kimelian kante so sarchet tende chene tene gumbo little kaula tubacham tambade te peme yondrala chapter chimbo chondo.
And what Nāgārjuna did was he ascertained the view of the middle through a large amount of reasoning, of logical arguments, with which he defeated a lot of adherents to other views than the middle way. He defeated them through these logical arguments. So that was really his contribution, that he was able to ascertain, to so-called like prove the view of the middle through a lot of logical arguments, and with that also defeating a lot of individuals who were adherents of other views. And thanks to this contribution, he then became very instrumental in spreading this doctrine of the middle way.
Then the gene the purchasing nigate yontra ke sanjiga tambatang gomba dawena the purchasing nige gomba te number sanjivi gomba zia and the chachadu.
Okay. So thanks to his contribution, these teachings became widely spread and known. And then generally what Khenpo is mentioning now is that both the doctrine of the Hinayana, the lower vehicle, and the Mahayana, the greater vehicle, that both of these doctrines are Buddha's teachings and intentions of the Buddha that he shared.
Jana ke open passion se jagar la phevre ko phevi kaula chik sacha kawa phevna tela tene thukpa chembu gonde chembo khashindus ya nyantu devi gonde khashindus ya te chi chasan chi chambo daw chi marto pe nalo la soba daw gyavda mewa chi khongi lamig na tenti thoknu
Karitsupa me pare.
Chigla chigapano tendri mayam bacho chasan
Hinayana. And in the 4th century, there was a Chinese man who traveled to India, and he wrote in his travel diaries that he journeyed through various places in India, and in some there he found practitioners inclined towards the Mahayana, and in others groups of Hinayana practitioners. These were not in disharmony with each other at all.
Yagar Giyarla, Taki Huk Chembo, Tubache Chechon Niga, Nyamda Chene, Chon Dabachi Reshando.
Nyamdu Tarne Labore.
Nyamda Nika, compare and Royal Marto, Yamchata was Chon Mandula, Chiki Mastavando, Tendre Lasso Samari.
From the time of the 1st century until the 12th century, these teachings, these Mahayana teachings, continued to spread in India, and at the same time also the Hinayana teachings kept on spreading. So both of them were sort of running parallel to each other and spreading widely, having a lot of respect for each other's path.
Jana Lopan Tanda Passion Pebikap Desola Jenda Chimbo Desu Tupachon Gendan Chasan Yam the Danton, Chasan so Yam the Pep, Yam the Shoe, Tendireshandu.
And fashion tells that often sponsors would invite the whole Sangha, whether they were more inclined towards the Hinayana path or the Mahayana path. They would invite the whole Sangha members from both paths and offer them feasts and all sorts of offerings.
That then Masu Tira Chilo Chikton Nija Sam Kalotela, the Navi Nija Nanentardan, Dojidan Chasan, the Tikala in Torswanda, which is down Gondi Macheva, Mevachari. Tedi Gotsuni.
Nalanda Tandurji then Ani Gundeji Mangutoro. And then going a little bit ahead in time in 1203, that year there were a lot of destructions from Buddhist places. Nalanda was destroyed, Bodh Gaya was destroyed, and many small monasteries were destroyed during that time.
Tanda Sri Lanka dan Burma dan Thailand redesu saja dela mama tarchia di nyantu dewa di tarchia chi tukwa chimbo de desu la shira tar tamando mama shira targi chongmando.
And in places such as Sri Lanka, Burma, and Thailand, the Mahayana did not really spread, rather the Shravakayana spread in these places.
Wata tendi chini ta jagar te khan se de ta jagar phapi yerla omi tamba senare omi tramtha senare omi nyamlen senare so wati tartan dawota dordis tendi dawo chi episode.
This is a short summary of how the teachings, the practice, and the philosophical school of the Madhyamaka, the middle way, spread in India, in the noble land of India.
Tatani Wanala Chuja Chason de Sanga Kala Tangasu Tanda Zo de Omatsawa Hirapti Pokela Jure.
Concerning Tibet, the root verses on the middle way were for the first time introduced and translated during the time of the king Trisong Deotsen by a translator named Chogrolui Gyaltsen.
Kalin jigme de kahi ngomaluruk songre songyore kahi ngomaluruk rang songre mandugo songre takhyato chekeyore kanta kyang tenjore
Korang gitsambare yangna
kalin jigme
re korang gitsambares
ngomaluruk songre mare songkan chikta te yaba cheng kahi re songore kahi mare songore
kazangatsu kala jikpa khare ale di vritti diro Mūlamadhyamakakārikā. And also one commentary to the root verses was introduced called in Tibetan Kala Jikpa, and in Sanskrit it is the Mūlamadhyamakakārikā vritti, and there is a debate about whether this text was in fact written by Nāgārjuna or not. Some say that was a text, the auto-commentary by Nāgārjuna, and others say that it wasn't.
Then, Oma Tangir will open Buddha Palta, Kong Zamjabi, Pechang Sayam Buddha Palta, they are Trason Dev Sankala Pola Injury.
Thalgyur bare.
아,
Thalgyur belugre.
단계비 정도 돼.
Le rangi pa mare.
말해.
Children Deutsing kabla.
응? 원래 교수. 다들 빼셔서 교육가 제대로.
Lasso hakoso. And one other text that was introduced during the time of Trisung Deodzin was a text on exponing the tradition, the Madhyamaka tradition of the Prasangika section. And the text was called Buddhapalita because it carried the name of the author of the text, who was Buddhapalita.
Then, Oma Rangi Shanta Chembo Kiba. Upon the Denjek song, Hero Drama, Deanzawa Hero Kunjawari, De Yang, Toson Depson Kala, Choroli Gansang Pokela Yuri, Desochasa, Yunkan, Choroli Gansare.
Sherab Drunme.
Hero Drama. Do a Hero Drama.
Yeah. And in another text that is considered a commentary to the root verses of the Middle Way by the scholar Baba Viveka was introduced and translated, exponing the Svatantrika Madhyamaka point of view. The text is called The Lamp of Wisdom.
Then, Tan Chanyan Chia de Bonala, so do de Hero Drama Dane. Oma Rangi be Jamta de Zo do Chanyan Nashandu.
And concerning then what was the tradition that was rather taught and studied, we find here that it was prevalent to study the Madhyamaka Svatantrika point of view on the view of Madhyamaka based on this text that we just have heard last by Baba Viveka, the lamp of wisdom. In Sanskrit, that would be the Prajna Pradipa or Jnana Pradipa. I don't exactly know, one of those two.
The Yoya Jimson Rawati Nasupa Tahido China Topen Shenso Shivanso Shandarachita Kong Jawut Toson Depson Kavla Pevre Kanlop Chusum Segro Angaso Kambomba Sado City Kore. Then on the corner of Omarangi. That did so to teach you can check in or somebody, Uncle Tirito Chitano.
Chandarakshika Kung Tanda Chabaki de Tambudi. So why was that? One reason might have been that during Trisung Deodzin's time, a so-called abbot, a senior monk, Shantarakshita, came to Tibet, was invited to Tibet, and he was the first one to ordain the first monks ever in Tibet. And this so-called abbot, Khenpo, Shantarakshita, he himself adhered to the Svatantrika Madhyamaka point of view, and they said maybe that's why then later on, based on his influence, that was the direction on Madhyamaka that was mainly studied.
The Jini George Pada Adhya Pala Pere, Kongo Tavi Tenderan Sandando Chine, Tanger Ranget Corte Tenderan Mawach Mason Vachi, so the Jamdro, Semke, Tende Sone, that book methods come out on Sambachine, so the Legion Redan, Jamdro Semke, the Sondo.
Later on, we know that Atisha came to Tibet, who was very influential, and Atisha was not very much invested in talking or teaching about the view of the Middle Way. He would rather focus on the topics of refuge, bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, and the principle of karma, cause and effect.
Then, Jesus, the book in knowledge, so been changing, so non can. Then, Shapa Gun, Long Gun, to so ma penkan jigdi, ngolo den hirap sedi, so jigre. Congo, Omi course on the Omarangi Bitawa, so chine song yosari.
Ale kurang sungrap tatut chugi.
So the Omi Tawa de Omarangi Bitum Tashaja, chine song yosari.
And there was another master in Tibet called Ngoklodin Sherab, who was also a teacher of the Dharma. And they say that also his approach to Madhyamaka was the Svatantrika approach.
Then Taponala Roma Tangir Vitawa de so Tariate Pasam Yamatra Shiachigore Konla Tenitari.
So then how or when did the Prasangika Madhyamaka point of view spread in Tibet? And it is attributed to the scholar Patsab Nyimachak.
The Kon Toya de Chilojikton Yame Ngauchingare Sengan Chig Yore.
When did Patsab Nyimachak live? He was born, some say, in 1055.
Yenaya Ma Chevi Chilojikton Yame Egypt Shengala Ore Songandi Desi Naitana Desi Dendoka was Contas of the Yagada was source.
Although Khenpo says, I feel that it is more accurate what most people claim that he was actually born in 1045.
Dijini Kon Tanda Kashmir Kachila Pevne, then Pesalonik Tasama Jangre.
And Patsab Nyimachak, he went to Kashmir, where he studied the Dharma scriptures for 23 years.
Ta Konlonik Tasam Pa Pecha Jang, then Pecha Jang de Kongo Padandawa Trava, Chandrakirti, Sonzo Chini Jan Andwa.
And it is said that during his time of study, he was very keen and focused on studying the texts by Chandrakirti.
Tatela Omanchukpa Manchukpi Ranger. Then Savahirabla Samatana Zahiganjeva Tsixer Kongateso Jang some Mayimba Bokala Gyur Zahiganjeva Tsixer. Then Masu Diginteri Somana Tsikanjeva Tsixers Zahi Donginjeva Omanchukpa Omanchukpi Rounders Kongateso Jang. Then a book like your
Ale Tönki Chanit Sixel. Tönki Chanit Sixel.
Don't Matsik Chani.
Tiki Chani.
Savahir could sick the old success in jail. In a tongue Dani, Omanjupa in jail, Pardon Davis on Ratiso. That is so Pardon Davis on Tesola, parts of good low John Chi, then parts of good book in the surgery.
Aninika Chandrakirti ki dire Palana Sombre. Which texts are we talking about here by Chandrakirti? We are talking about the Madhyamaka Avatara, the entry into the middle way, and the auto-commentary by Chandrakirti on Tesqua. Ti Rangdrel di Sixel di Marwa? Okay, so he was mainly focusing on the text of the Madhyamaka Avatara, the entry into the middle way by Chandrakirti, then the auto-commentary on that text by Chandrakirti, and then also another commentary by Chandrakirti on the root verses of the middle way, called the clear words, the commentary on the root verses of the Middle Way. And it is said that this commentary on the root verses of the Middle Way by Chandrakirti is a text that explains clearly the words that Nāgārjuna uses in this treatise, and then that the Madhyamaka is the work of Chandrakirti that explains the meaning of the root verses of the Middle Way by Nāgārjuna. And these texts then were also translated into Tibetan by Patsab Nimachak.
Then that's our here of thing on the pocket in Jorda Yoga Day, young Congo, Desi, Dachu Jenny, and then not.
And what he also did, Patsab Nimachak, was a revision of the already extant translation of the root verses on the Middle Way in Tibetan. So he revised that earlier translation.
Oman Jukba yang Tinghon and Jukba Zawa de Jerva Kashi Yorsong de Yana Danda de Jerva Janjamado. Natsu Losa was Hejura, Natsu Losa, Bokaran, Natsu Losa, Oman Jukba Bokati Gurore. Yena yang Chine Pasuk in Jordan Dagmare. Pasuk in Jordan Yagatsago.
Ale Patsabki. Kurangi di Magurunga Kashi Gursare.
Omanjupati, Timur, Ani Naxulosava, then Java Juriores on the Ena, Tinjava Jurs of London Jarmadu. Ale Jamas.
Ale.
Savat and Jason.
Ale.
Dosimanavajitu.
And when Patsab Nimachak then translated the Madhyamaka Avatara, the root text, and the commentaries into Tibetan at that time, there were already some translations on these texts available in Tibetan, although these days, Khenpo Lobsang says, I have never seen these earlier translations on the commentaries by Chandrakirti. I have only seen the translation of the root text. And they are said, these translations, to have been done by a Lotsawa, a translator called Nakso Lotsawa. And Patsab, however, he did his own translation, and it is considered a better one.
Then Pasu Nimachaka Tadon, T. Tond, Omi Korla, Pardon Davin Zajabi, Omaji Gavin Jerva, Pardon Davin Zajabi, Tony Dunchu in Jerva, Tony Dunchu and Gumalatuk Sonri, Tinjerva, Pardon Daviore. Then Omaji Gava, Agent of Sonra, Tinjerva, Pardon Davin Zayore, Tinika. Repatuchu in Java, what is some capocally Kong? The Tango is so much, pardon, there is so much of a young in the Pacific.
So most texts on exponing the Prasangika view of the Madhyamaka were translated by and brought to Tibet by Patsab Nimachak, and he also did a translation of the commentary on the 400 verses of Aryadeva by Chandrakirti, and on the 70 verses on emptiness by Nāgārjuna, and he also did a translation on the 60 verses on reasoning by Nāgārjuna. So he really was a very active translator.
Koran Tonsa de Pambo Patsap Sede, Patsap Sede, such a meaning. Del Tore, then Pambo Patsap Sede, Gomba Che Gavni. That Omatangi, pardon Davison, that Kong Shere, Tomatisula.
Such a mean Patsap.
Such a Patsab.
And he was called Patsab Lotsawa because he was from Patsab. Patsab, a place in Tibet, and he then established a monastery in Patsab, and in that monastery he taught the Prasangika view.
That is in the consultation Yaksare. This road was here. That Congo Tendis, pardon Davi looks so tema, Chison, the Tinghula Ponala, 我们让就比过的做去，空个我们谈就比过的做的送的，真的，空个送的就是开门人看被忙我抢的不能了。
Yeah. So here, just a little story on that, which is quite entertaining. And Patsap was quite radical, therefore, in proposing a new approach to Madhyamaka, which was the Prasangika view. And as we have heard, until then, there were a lot of teachings and teachers that were only proclaiming the Svatantrika Madhyamaka approach and not the Prasangika approach. So therefore, when he started talking about Prasangika Madhyamaka, there were a lot of people